It is the 8th of August 1944, and a brief yet sharp armoured engagement occurs between a desperate German counterattack, led by a handful of Tigers, and two squadrons of British and Canadian Shermans. In the resulting ambush, Allied tank crews cut down the Tigers in a vicious 75 and 17-pounder crossfire. By the end of this small engagement, an event that would be subsumed by the larger events of Operation Totalize and the death throes of the German army in the Falaise pocket, a controversy would arise. For among those killed in that failed panzer attack was famed Tiger ace Michael Wittmann, sparking a historical debate to what unit fired that fatal shot. Operation Totalize, closing the Falaise pocket. By early August 1944, the situation of the German army in Normandy is dire. Their forces are on the verge of collapse, with their panzer force hemorrhaging panzers in 2 months of brutal, attritional fighting against ever-growing Allied strategic dominance. Being squeezed ever tighter in the pocket around the city of Falaise, on August 8, 1st Canadian Army prepares to launch Operation Totalize. Its aim: to close the pocket, cutting off the remnants of the German army from their axis of retreat to the west and destroy the trapped Germans in detail. It is this reality that confronts SS Oberführer Kurt Meyer, commander of the battered 12th SS Hitlerjuden Division. Observing from a forward observation post on the high ground near Geisch-Namel, in the distance he can clearly see 2 British and Canadian armoured divisions forming to attack. He decides he must counterattack now, before this armoured juggernaut can sweep his forces aside. Thus he hopes a desperate spoiling attack with the limited fighting units at his disposal will buy him the time he badly needs to repair his defences. Conferring with his staff, a scratch force consisting of some 20 Panzer IVs of SS Panzer Regiment 12 and Panzer Grenadiers from SS Regiment 25 is prepared to attack. To spearhead this forlorn assault, Meyer turns to the Tigers' 2nd Company, SS Heavy Panzer Battalion 101, commanded by the infamous Michael Wittmann. Wittmann's battle-hardened crews will lead the assault into the jaws of the Allied assault, and for most of them, into the arms of death. Operation Totalize launches on the morning of August 8 and quickly overwhelms the German defences. Punching a 6-kilometre penetration into the German front line, Allied air supremacy is on full display, with the assault being heralded with a mass aerial bombardment of some 680 B-17 flying fortresses. The bombers intend to blast open the German front lines at 12:20 hours, and the 2nd Canadian Army Corps to pour through and charge for Falaise. It is with the growing drone of this approaching air armada that Wittmann and his 4 Tigers prepare to hurl themselves into battle. Concealed in a forested area to the southeast of Sinto, his own Tiger, 205, being in for repairs, Wittmann is now mounted in the Battalion Command Tiger 007. And as the first Allied Pathfinders begin to mark targets with airdrop flares, Meyer knows the time is up and the assault must be sent in now. The Tigers leave the safety of their concealed staging area and their death ride begins. Accounts are in conflict onto the composition of Wittmann's Tiger force, with some sources stating 4 tanks and at least one mentioning a further 3 tanks in his force, though 4 to 5 Tigers seems to be the most likely, judging by the recollections of Allied tank crews during the engagement. Ambush along the Route Nationale. Awaiting to the north were 2 squadrons of M4 Shermans. A Squadron, the Northamptonshire Yeomanry, and A Squadron, Sherbrooke Fusiliers. Both these company-sized units laid in concealed positions, either side of the D138 highway. It seems highly likely by what would occur next that Wittmann and his crews were totally unaware of these threats lurking on their flanks. Advancing in a staggered column astride a highway, Wittmann and his Tigers slowly advance, with his vehicle bringing up the rear of the column. Each Tiger, according to observers, would momentarily pause and offer covering fire to their platoon mates. The Tigers are seen to engage enemy armour to their direct front of advance, engaging these threats at the range of 1200 metres. However, the Tigers are still not aware of the danger lurking on their flanks as they advance, exposing their vulnerable sides to the waiting M4s and Fireflies. The Shermans and Sherman Fireflies of A Squadron, Northamptonshire Yeomanry, were positioned in an orchard around the town of Del Laray. The Yeomanry, part of the 33rd British Armoured Brigade, arrived in the orchard at 0430 hours and now sat concealed on Fitman's right flank at a range of 1200 metres. On Fitman's left flank, A Squadron, Sherbrooke Fusiliers of the 2nd Canadian Armoured Brigade. Like the Yeomanry and other British and Commonwealth tank units, the Sherbrooks contained both 75 and 17 pounder equipped Shermans. As popular culture tends to focus on Joe Aitken's Firefly, perhaps giving the impression that the Yeomanry were the only unit to contain tanks capable of knocking out Tigers. This is false. And as the ambush matured, the range would reduce from 750 metres for the Yeomanry to as possibly as few as 140 metres for the Sherbrooks, making even 75mm fire in the thinner side and rear armour of the Tiger lethal. The Canadian Shermans took up positions in the grounds of the Chateau Guy-Jamel, knocking out firing loops in the high walls of the chateau's gardens. From their position, astride the 13A highway, only 150 metres away where Fitman's Tiger would meet its end. The ambush itself, according to the war diary of the Northamptonshires, would only last for 12 minutes, from 1240 hours to 1252 hours, with the destruction of all Tigers for no Sherman losses. In these 12 minutes of fire and flame, Fitman and his crew would die, lost in a catastrophic ammunition detonation that launched a turret from the hull of their tank, killing Fitman and his crew instantly. As the smoke settled and the guns grew silent, the events of that day would fade into obscurity. Decades later, a controversy among historians and military history enthusiasts would arise. In 1988, when Fitman's remains were rediscovered almost 44 years after his death, interest in him and how he met his demise would resurface. 3 separate units would come forward to claim the kill. The Northamptonshire Yeomanry, crediting the kill to Trooper Joe Atkins of No. 3 Troop, A Squadron, a gunner of a Sherman Firefly, who accounted for an impressive 3 Tigers for 5 rounds fired, and probably responsible for the lion's share of the Tigers destroyed that day. But was one of those Tigers Fitman's? We will explore Joe Aitken's fascinating story and recollections of that day in more detail in a later video. The second, until very recently most overlooked claimants, were the Canadian crews of A Squadron Sherbrooke Fusiliers. Though often overlooked, they sat on Fitman's left flank and were at point blank range to Fitman's Tiger. Modern research conducted on the battlefield by a 2013 documentary team made a compelling argument that the Sherbrooke's advantageous position, only 150 metres from Fitman's final position, and the fact that the kill shot on Fitman's Tiger came on the left rear section of the tank, a hit that struck the ammunition and fuel for the Tiger, becomes a compelling possibility that the kill shot had actually come from the Canadians. Furthermore, then Major Radley Walters, commander of A Squadron Sherbrooks, recalled seeing a Tiger near the highway a mere 200 yards from his position. He went on further, recalling that the Shermans of his troop immediately brought the Tiger under fire, and clearly saw it suffer a large detonation that launched its turret. Perhaps the weakest claim comes from the Royal Air Force. Not wanting to be left out of the claim party, the RAF also hedged a bet that one of their Typhoons knocked out Fitman's Tiger with rocket and cannon fire. However, there is very little collaborating evidence from the witnesses on the ground that made any mention of attack aircraft joining the attack. Till further evidence of this claim surfaces, we can discount this as unlikely. What truly happened during those 12 minutes of Cento may be forever shrouded to us. The true course of those events may be forever lost to the gunsmoke of history. An engagement just one of many countless ordeals of a much larger operation, and quickly faded in the minds of the Allied tank crews that took part in it, as this was just 12 minutes into a massive operation, making this ambush almost a mundane occurrence in the broader scheme of things when viewed through the events that were unfolding around them. My personal view, based on the limited evidence, is that the Sherbrooks most likely fired a fatal round. Based on the exploration and investigation of the ambush site mounted by the 2013 documentary crew, and the compelling arguments that they brought to the fore, it seems somewhat likely that that lone tank that the Sherbrooks engaged and destroyed was indeed Wittmann's. However, in the end, it matters not who ended Wittmann, Sherbrooks or Northamptonshire's. The action was a testament to the cool professionalism to the crews of both regiments, who both displayed great skill at arms in the execution of the ambush, and in just 12 minutes, 4 irreplaceable Tigers were lost, and all for no losses to either regiment, thus demonstrating the skill, cool determination of the Allied tank crewmen, and the terrible human cost of armoured warfare.